Welcome everybody, and thank you for muting yourselves as well as shutting off your camera. It does help with our streaming here because we have 32 participants on today, so we appreciate that. We want to keep the focus on the PowerPoint and the messaging. Yes, the consultants have come back from LIO and said, you know, we really think that there's a need out there regarding the assessments and what we need to do right now, because it's a little different than if you're there in person, obviously. So I think they're going to hit on a couple of good points. We hope that this is interactive, that you ask questions as we go along so they can answer those. I know Caitlin as well as Johanna and Amanda will keep track of those questions and try to answer them. It is some hard times. We appreciate, again, all your dedication to the kids. Bottom line is, it is all about them. But if we can help along the way, let us know. Johanna, there was a message, and Amanda, I was going to give in the beginning that we talked about at today's meeting. Do you recall what that was? Okay, Amanda, you're muted. Can you remember what that was, that messaging that we wanted to communicate?
Yes, we'd love to encourage you to sign up for the upcoming presentation on
active learning.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I knew there was a promo here.
I couldn't tell you the date, but I do know that it's coming up.
Yes. So, you know, we have limited seats. We know that people are signing up for this. We want to make sure that we get to as many people as possible. Johanna can speak a little more about this, and I'd like her to do that before we get into today's session. So welcome, everyone. Have a great session. Johanna, go ahead and talk a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Sure. So coming up on November 20th, we are going to have a workshop on active learning. And for those of you that are not familiar with active learning, it is a type of instruction that is done with students with multiple impairments that are also blind, visually impaired. We have a phenomenal speaker from Penricton Center for Blind Children in Taylor going to do our presentation for that. So it's going to be broken up in two parts, because sitting on Zoom for a full day workshop is very taxing and difficult. We're all finding, I think, with screen time. So November 20th is the first date for that. 9 to 11:30, I believe, is the time. 2 weeks later is the second date. And that date, I'm looking right now, is the second date is then going to be December 4th. Again, a morning session. So it's a two-part workshop, all of the gamut of active learning. And we're filling up fast, but we hopefully that people can join us for that content. I'm excited to hear. So that's it for active learning workshop that's coming up. Let's start with just what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully people are beginning to catch their breath now that the school year is up and running. I know it's just been craziness for all of you. So thank you for taking the time today to just be with us and to listen. We are going to talk about really what essential assessments are. We are also going to talk about a tool that our office put together with a small group of stakeholder input for you to use while conducting your essential assessments during this very unique time of distance learning, of hybrid situations, of remaining socially distant, and on all of that. So we're also going to have some time at the end for some questions and answers. If you have questions throughout, or if something we say you have an immediate question for, please put it in the chat. If we know that we're going to cover it later on, we may tell you to hold on, that we'll get to it, or we'll answer it on the spot. So we'll see how that goes, but please put your questions in the chat. We also, you can use the raise your hand function too if you've got a question as well. So it's a small enough group today. I think we can be interactive with one another. We have some resources to share with you at the end, and of course then our contact information. So let's get started with just a poll question. And, you know, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page as what we're talking about today. And so Caitlin's going to launch and ask you, what's an example of an essential assessment? Your choices, choose as many as apply. So is it a learning media assessment? Is it My Access? Functional vision assessment? Is it M-STEP? Is it an orientation mobility evaluation? So what is an essential assessment? And again, check all that apply. Okay. So let's take a look at those results. So 93% of you thought that an essential assessment was a learning media assessment. 28% thought My Access. Functional vision assessment, 100%. All of you feel that functional vision assessment is an essential assessment. M-STEP, 28%. 93% of you thought orientation and mobility evaluation were an essential assessment. So let's look at the answers. So Amanda, if you want to click to the next slide. Okay, so what are essential assessments for children who are blind, visually impaired? And I left out that little part about for children who are blind, visually impaired at the beginning, and I should have said that, but the three things that are essential assessments, that are deemed essential assessments by our field, are the learning media assessment, the functional vision assessment, and then a priority area within the expanded core curriculum. So a priority area within the expanded core curriculum could be your orientation and mobility assessment. It could be your AT evaluation. It could be something that you're doing on transition. It could be looking at your ILS skills. It could be looking at those social skills. So any of those 9 areas of the expanded core curriculum could be a priority area within that you would do an essential assessment on. So looks like people had great ideas of what it is, and to know that it's those 3 things that we consider in our field as essential assessments. So as you're conducting essential assessments, if you're new to conducting essential assessments, I wanted to share with you some resources that go along with those assessments. The first resource that we have here is from on Perkins eLearn, and we're not going to go to that website right now. Just going to tell you a little bit about it. So this is about a 20-minute video from Karen Blankenship, and Karen is one of the leaders in our field, does a lot of things out there, especially around essential assessments. She does work with Nancy Tell, and if anyone is familiar with Nancy, Nancy is the founder of quality programs for the visually impaired, QPVI. So they do a lot of work with quality assessments and quality programming for students with visual impairments. So that's about a 20-minute video that you could walk through. It talks about what essential assessments are. And then it also talks about how to use the EA rubric. Now, if just quickly, if you could show me with just the raising your hand, is who has heard of the EA rubric before? All right, Jennifer has. Anybody else? Abby says she has not. All right. Okay, well then I'm very excited to share this EA rubric with you today. We could spend quite a long time just going through the EA rubric, but this is something, and maybe we could put that link in the chat so that people could have that access to it. So the EA rubric was created through a lot of work at different AER international meetings, in which they're really looking at what's going to make that we do have some meat to them. How are we going to make sure that we're including all of the essential information in them? They really defined what an essential, they kind of came this essential assessment term that I am using today as far as our assessments go. So if you go to the EA rubric homepage, there are 2 different tabs that you would want to look at. So first, the content tab, the content rubric. So the content rubric goes through all of the different pieces. And Amanda, I don't know if you can slowly scroll, kind of all through the different pieces of what makes an assessment a valid beefed up assessment. What pieces do you want to make sure that you're including in your report writing? How are you going to do those? How are you going to do those pieces? How are you going to test for those pieces? And so that first content piece talks about all of those. So you could click on one of the, let's click on parent interview or review. Let's just click on the first one. So within it, it gives you ideas about what makes a good parent interview or caregiver interview, why it's important, where in the law it tells us that we need to include those components. And so it does go through all of the pieces of those essential assessments, that functional vision assessment, the learning media assessment, and then any area, any focus area of the ECC that you're doing an evaluation on. The reason why there is not just, you're not addressing every area in the ECC is because that's a big task for a yearly evaluation. So the reason why it's just a focus area of the ECC, and maybe you're just pulling out an AT assessment or O&M evaluation, is because you're looking at that year, you're looking at the focus, and you're looking at what's important. So that's why you're able to pick out some of those pieces of the ECC without having to do an assessment in all 9 areas, because as you know, that would take a tremendous amount of time. So if we go back to the homepage, actually, perfect. The other piece that you would look at, so through the content, you're looking at what needs to be included for yourself. The second piece of this, which I really like, for those of you that do peer-to-peer reviews for each other or help each other out on reports and report writing, is there's a quality rubric section. It breaks down the evaluations in birth to 3 to 5 and so on, and it tells you what components you need to make sure that you're including in your reports and your assessment piece. So Amanda, if you just wanted to click on one of those, she is pulling up 5 to 22. Now the persons that created this EA rubric did not live in Michigan, clearly, because they only go up to 22, which is where special education in most states in the United States go up to. So for us, it would be 5 to 26. And so they talk about, I just want to pause right there, Amanda. They talk about the category. So within your essential assessment report, you would parent and caregiver interview. If you were doing a peer-to-peer review, the report that you're reviewing had everything in the 4 category, you could give that peer a 4. You could say that they were proficient in their report if they had 6 of the 8 components. You see the components listed there as, you know, you're mentioning the type of visual impairment. You're mentioning the onset of the visual impairment. So you can really look at, or you can just do a self-evaluation. Did I include everything? Am I being thorough in my assessment and evaluation? All the way down to not evidence. So if you are reading your own report and you see that you're giving yourselves 1s in a lot of the columns, then you may need to then go back and add more information into your report. So this website really serves as both a content check and then a quality review. So I really like this, this EA rubric. So hopefully, it's been around for a while, but I don't think it's as widely used as it could be. So that's the EA rubric. We'll go back to then the next link is just additional educational assessments. So I think a lot of times your psychologist will come to you and say, what is out there for students that are blind, visually impaired? How are we evaluating them. This website, for those of you who are not familiar with students with visual impairments, this website has a lot of actually freebies and printables and good stuff for your teaching and for your assessments. But this particular link takes you to talk about educational assessments, and it then will list for you some of the different educational assessments that are out there. Now remember that all of those educational assessments are normed for students that are that do not have a visual impairment. So we do know that some of our results do come into question as far as the validity of the score when using some of these standardized assessments. But know that these are out there. Know that some of them do come in Braille and large print, and several of them are available through APH, and that we also have in our office to borrow. So if it does come up and you need additional assessments, give our office a call and we can help direct you to see if we've got that assessment for you. But again, that website is a great website for, all kinds of ideas for you. So here's I want to ask the audience maybe a fun fact. What is the only essential assessment required by federal law? So now that we know the essential assessments, learning media assessment, the functional vision assessment, or the priority area within the expanded core curriculum, what's the only one required by law? So just as we are wrapping up the poll, I see that Abby has a question about, does MDE have any of these assessments for us to borrow? We do have the learning media assessment. We have functional vision assessment through APH that you can borrow. We also have some other learning media assessment tools that you can borrow from our resource library. The Woodcock-Johnson is available. The Key Math is available. The RAT5 is available. So there are also some other educational assessments, Abby, available through our office that would be listed on our resource page. Or you could just email us and we could tell you what you're looking for. All right, let's look at the results and see what we think. Okay, so the only essential assessment, and Jennifer Barley is getting the prize today for her comment in the chat, would be, next slide, is the learning media assessment. So within IDEA, the portion of the learning media, the portion of that where it talks about Braille skills. So as I'm on my soapbox about Braille, we know that through our law, it tells us that Braille is always to be taught unless our assessment has deemed it not necessary, so that we're always looking to look at the child's current needs and the child's future needs, and that is determined through an evaluation of the child's reading and writing skills and needs appropriate reading and writing media. So the answer to that question is learning media assessment. So just a little fun fact. All right, so Amanda's gonna take over and talk about our essential assessment tool.
All right, so now that we're all on the same page about the law, I'm going to kind of share with you some thoughts we have and information that we have regarding how to perform some of these essential assessments during COVID-19. So the essential assessment tool that we're going to share with you was our way of looking at the guidance documents that were put out in the spring, and we were able to utilize some of the information and apply it to the actual assessments that we administer. So when you look at the beginning of the essential assessment tool that we'll share, you're going to see that there's some background information for you. Let me jump to our next There we go. So you're going to find that there will be a guidance document there that's put out by the Department of Education and or the Office of Special Education. And then there will be a second document, and that document was put together by Dr. Ting Su at the University of California, Berkeley. And I'm going to share with you these links so that you can go to them and check them out yourself. And they're also in our essential assessment document. And what you're going to find in these guidance documents are information regarding how you need to apply information for the assessments. So let's see. Okay, so this first document, the Office of Special Education for Compliance with Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education during COVID-19 pandemic gives us the details of how to interpret the 30-day school rule for assessment. And you're going to find that on page 8. So we'll go to that.
So right now, Amanda, we just see your PowerPoint.
Yes, I'm not there yet.
Okay, sorry. I didn't realize.
It's okay. No worries. I'm getting there. Got to jump to it. All right. So we're going to scroll down to page 8. Okay. So on page 8, it indicates that we need to plan to complete the assessment as planned in 30 school days. It does give us a few ideas regarding which days count as part of the 30 days and which do not. But for the most part, all of the school days are now counting regardless if they are held in person or if they're held from a distance. So it does give us some guidance regarding getting an extension, but that must be in writing with the parent, and it's only for extenuating circumstances. So for the most part, COVID-19 can't really be an overriding reason for extensions throughout a district. So they can't say, you know, oh, all of our assessments are going to be 45 days versus 30 days. They can't do that. That has to be on an individualized basis in terms of how they determine extensions, and it must be in writing. Okay. The second document that we're going to take a look at this one is the comprehensive eval of blind and low vision students. And this one was put out by Dr. Ting Su. She's a TVI and comms doctorate in, she's the chair of the University of Berkeley, California, and for the Low Vision Studies program. In this document, she provides us with a whole bunch of research and resources. And the document's really, truly geared toward California or the state of California. But if we kind of scroll down through it and we get to the second and third pieces of the document, you're going to find, actually it's all the way down to the third, fourth, and fifth parts of the document. You're going to find all sorts of information regarding how to go about safely doing assessments, both if you're in person, where, you know, she's talking about maybe considering things like an air purifier, or the process in how you go about disinfecting the tools or bringing the tools to the assessment, you know, putting them all in a Ziploc and then returning them all to that Ziploc and knowing that that set of tools has to be disinfected before you use it with another set of students. So she's got some really great ideas within that document. And as I said, the two documents that we provided, they are also within our essential assessment document that we're going to share. Okay. What we found with the particular documents is they didn't really give us any ideas as to what we could do for each assessment during this time frame when we're serving and assessing students in a virtual setting. They kind of gave us some ideas as far as setting and how to potentially keep yourself safer, but they didn't really tell us what things would be pretty easy to assess and what things were going to be a little more challenging. And so we sat down and decided that we really wanted to figure out how we could perform assessments in a virtual setting, in a hybrid setting, or when you were in person but you were social distancing. And so we wanted to share some of those ideas of how to think about your assessment and map out skills that are possible, probable, and problematic. Okay, now Johanna is going to share with you the document that we created.
All right, thanks, Amanda. So just a thumbs up or a quick in the chat, how many people have assessments coming up? How many people have been wondering about how to complete these, or new referrals that you need to do assessments on? Just to kind of see some hands. Okay. So Amanda, Amanda's going to open up that document. And so lots of people are saying yes. Some people are allowed to go on site for evaluations. Some students can come in for evaluations. Some people have a few that aren't able to come in. So the purpose of us putting this together, obviously it's going to serve our purposes probably for the next year. This is a document that we worked on within our office. And then we also asked a very small group of experienced teachers, some feedback on it. It's something that as we go through this document, if you've got you're on the boots out, on the streets out there. So if you also have some feedback for us, new ideas or ways to make something that we thought was problematic possible, we'd love to hear that feedback from you. So you start the document with just some guiding questions to consider. And I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger on my screen. So, who are you evaluating? Is this a new referral? Is it a reevaluation? If it's a new referral, that might take more time to gather some of this information. You might not be able to do as much as what you had been, you might not have as much information to go on as if it's on a reevaluation. Think about what information you need to gather in order to make their current situation possible with the right accommodations. So as we know, we are making all of our IEP plans as if it was the traditional brick and mortar setting and developing contingency plans for distance learning or for hybrid situations. So think about really what information do you have to be gathering? Again, thinking about what that classroom setting looks like right now and what it's going to look like in the future, knowing that in the future, many things will go back to what we, that traditional brick and mortar setting. Think also about, are there going to be materials that possibly I can drop off at a student's home? What things might I need to ship or mail or order in order to get this assessment done. So there may be new pieces of equipment that you have to gather and get ready. Also, if you're going to be doing this through a distance learning or in a home, are there other adults either in the home or present in the classroom setting that you could possibly use to facilitate that instruction? Are there going to be ways that other people can help capture some of the data? So are they going to be able to maybe do some videotaping for you, or could there be some photos taken? Could there be a data collection sheet that you send to somebody that starts collecting some of the data that you're looking for? And then really kind of get a big whole picture of how much longer is this going to take me than what it used to take me when then I could quickly go into a school for the day. So that is those initial questions to consider. The next we've already talked about, as Amanda scrolls through, is those general resources. And those are those two, one from the Department of Special Education Department of Michigan, and then the other document. And so then what we did was we went through and we broke down each assessment. So today we're going to talk about the learning media assessment, the functional vision assessment. We are also going to talk about the CVI range because, as many of you know, the CVI range is a functional vision assessment for students with cortical visual impairment. So we broke that assessment down as well. We're going to talk about orientation and mobility assessment and then the AT evaluation. So those 5 assessments, realizing that you could be doing assessments with ILS, you could be doing some things with social skills, you could be doing some things with Braille literacy skills. So this document does not cover every single assessment that you may or may not be doing. So the way the document is set up is in 3 columns. First column is everything that we feel would be possible, whether you are distance learning, you are seeing a student over Zoom and maybe in person, or you are actually in person with a student, but maybe you still have to socially distance. Maybe you have to have that teaching assistant doing all of the hands-on stuff for you. So we call that possible. So we feel that review of records is going to be possible in your learning media assessment. Observation is also possible, and that's where you may involve some videos, or it may be involved a Zoom session in which you're set up to do some observation, and then the interview portion of your assessment. So when we think about our assessments in that RIOT model, where it's that review of records, that interview with key individuals, the observation, and then that direct testing, that direct assessment. So with the direct assessment components with the learning media assessment, a lot of the forms in the Keening and Holbrook assessment can be used. I feel a lot of them are observational forms. So that is pretty probable that all of those forms should be able to be used. Something that we felt was maybe problematic with the learning media assessment would be to be conducting any of that, the basic reading inventories, doing reading speeds, maybe assessing reading fatigue and stamina. Those might be problematic if you are not in person with a student, if you're not able to have that access. Now, you may be able to do some coaching and some teaching with people, the adults that are there, to get them to have the results that you're looking for, but know that piece of the learning media assessment may be problematic. The next assessment that we looked at was the CVI range. Similar aspects to the CVI range, reviewing those records, the observation, the interview section. The CVI range is, I would say, problematic to be conducted over over Zoom or over a internet connection and obtain a true score. The only exception I would give is if someone was equally trained in giving that CVI assessment, was with that student face-to-face in person while you were, on the computer doing a distance learning. So that would be problematic of actually obtaining a true score for that assessment. The next functional vision assessment, you see that we've broken it down again on components of the functional vision assessment that we feel could be obtained, information that you could obtain. For this one, we did mention if it was a virtual situation, a hybrid situation, or socially distant, where you could obtain some of that information. We did feel problematic areas for that might be the use of teller cards. Having the student, the classroom demonstration of functional vision might be problematic if you're not able to be in the classroom with the student. Some near tests may be hard to test with acuity and print size. Now, notice we say problematic, but not necessarily impossible. So none of these are hard and fast rules. They are suggestions for you to use. And as we talked about, if there are some things that you've already been doing because you're out there doing it and you've got some input on this, we'd like to hear your suggestions. So that is how those three are set up. And Amanda's going to talk about how the orientation mobility evaluation is set up.
Okay, thanks, Johanna. Just one of the things I wanted to point out regarding the information that Ting shared with us in her document. Keep in mind that when you are doing online or virtual assessments, none of that has ever been really researched. So we just don't know the validity or reliability of the results that we get. So just keep that in mind when you're doing these assessments. It's not something that we want to go toward doing for the rest of our careers. We're hoping that within the next year or so we'll be back to doing what is tried and true and that we know has validity. So keep that in mind. Okay, so for orientation and mobility, again, we're going to look at what's possible, what's probable, what's problematic. With O&M, it's likely probable that you can do pieces of all of the different assessments, whether you're using TAPS or using the New Mexico Skills Inventory as your assessment tools. There are parts that you can look at in each of the different areas. So what may be possible for some of the students may not be possible for others. And I'm going to show you a risk analysis that is out right now that will help you hopefully to think about how something will be impacting your child or your student that you're working with. Okay, so remember when we took our oath for being an O&M specialist, we indicated that our students' safety was of utmost importance. So you'll want to be cognizant of the risks. And it may be helpful to go through and document the risks for each item that you're assessing and how you'll ensure the student's safety. So when you are looking through this document, you're going to notice that there are lots of similarities in terms of the LMA and the functional, in terms of looking at reviewing records and observations, doing key interviews, things like that. Things that you can do for the direct assessment components, definitely looking at if this is a student that's not an initial evaluation, you'll be able to look at what was their present level, what were they capable of doing, and then how do they compare to their age-related peers. it is very likely you could go through, do body concepts, body image stuff. A lot of that you could do right, over a Zoom session or something like that. Probable things that you could look at, and again, these are going to be dependent on some safety pieces. Do you have somebody that is capable of monitoring them and making sure that they stay safe, whether it be a parent or a paraprofessional or a teacher that works with them on a regular basis? But you could look at things like, how do they do with, walking and balance and alignment? Can they do hand trailing for the indoor environment? Do they have skills for doing human guide? So you can look at a lot of those things, and you're going to probably change that up based on the level of the child, the level of exposure, things like that. Things that will be problematic. So the following assessment points that we have for problematic are things like sidewalk travel. If this is a child that's in high school and they've been traveling with you for years and years, they may very well be able to go and walk down the sidewalk and demonstrate an L route or something like that if they have somebody monitoring from a distance, or they have a parent along with them. If they're a skilled traveler, that might be just fine. But where it becomes problematic is when you get to the point of street crossings. And those of you who've been doing this for a while probably are sitting there going, yeah, I don't feel comfortable with them doing street crossings without me there. And so you'll want to go through and really assess that risk and decide what is safe. With that, I wanted to show you. So Bill Kaler is a comms who's part of the Orientation and Mobility Specialist Association, the OMSA Association. And he and some of his colleagues put together a risk assessment matrix. And this matrix allows you to kind of think through that whole process of what's a low risk factor, what's something that's a medium risk factor, or what's a high risk factor. And with that, he has you considering things like, what's the child's age, what's their experience, what's the environment that we're testing in. He also has you look at, things like, is the student a flight risk, things like that. So going through mapping out your assessment and figuring out what's safe to do and what is something that I'm going to need to hold off, and we'll assess this at a later time. All right. Oops, I'm sorry, guys. I jumped out of the wrong thing. Sorry, Johanna, 1 second. One of the tricks of balancing a lot of different things on this. There we go. Okay. So in our document, what I did do is go through and give you some ideas of areas that you'll want to take a look at. So in bold, there are items that might be a little more challenging to figure out, and that you'll want to go through and put in that risk assessment so that you can decide if it's safe, and then if it is something that's safe, what that's going to look like when you map it out. Okay, so potentially, if you were looking at body concepts, it's real easy to do. Touch your nose, touch your head, those kinds of things, and probably the child will be very safe. But if you want to look at body concepts in terms of understanding time and distance, that may take a little more thinking through to figure out, is this something that will be safe for the child? And then plan that out with that risk assessment of what that will look like or if you need to wait. Okay, same with street crossings. You might be able to assess a student's body alignment, or you might be able to assess their ability to do line of travel, but then when you get to crossing the street, you say, we need to wait. And so it is really something where you need to look at, are you making sure your student is in the safest position and that they're not going to be at risk. Okay. Let's jump into AT for a second. So the assistive technology piece, we utilized the assistive tech for students who are blind and visually impaired, a guide to assessment, and that's by Ike Presley and Mary Frances DeAndrea. That was back from 2009. There are other assessment books that have come out recently that you might be using, but we just use it to get some ideas of things that we're going to look at. Most of these skills that we're going to assess are safe to assess, but the challenge is going to come when you are looking at demonstrating how a device works to a child that's never used it. So a lot of times with our AT assessments, we're looking at what device is going to work well for the child, and we want to give them a variety of devices to check out and try. A lot of people are not in the position that they can present those tools to our students, and so that's where it becomes a little tricky in terms of figuring out what works and what doesn't. I've designed this so that items that might be problematic to test out or to assess are going to be in bold, and then you have to think about, like, when you demonstrate how to use a note taker or a Mac Connect, those may take a little more creativity if you can't be there in person. Okay, so we'll scroll down again, reviewing records, things like that, observations, those are all very possible. Probable skills, some things that might be a little bit more challenging to think through would be like glare issues. Doing that virtually might be challenging to actually implement what that glare could look like for the student. Having a parent do that might not be as easy as if you were to go in and do that for them. But there are several other things that might not be too challenging. A lot of parents are used to using a computer. They may be able to demonstrate that with their child or their student, but maybe they don't know keyboarding, and so maybe that could become problematic, or maybe they don't know how to enlarge a cursor, so keep that in mind. Things that are most likely going to be problematic, but not necessarily impossible, would be like showing them how to use a braille display, how to use a distance camera, using magnification and tools, things like that. So just keep that in mind, but we've gone through and tried to lay out as best we could ideas of what may pose some issues, and will hopefully help you to think through, that's what we need in order to do this piece of the assessment. Okay, so we would like to open this up to questions. What kinds of things are you curious about? What ideas can you share with us that would allow us to think through some of the information in the document? What do you think would what parts of the document do you feel are going to be helpful?
As people are thinking of those questions, Amanda, will you just click right back into the document? And I wanted to share one more piece.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit further down in the document. There are some additional resources. So if you are doing something with independent living skills, there's that the checklists are there. There are all of the books that are available in our resource library. If you are looking for additional assessment tools, things available from American Printing House for the Blind as well, and just additional resources. I love the Maryland's College and Career Building Ready Standards. If you haven't checked that out, I would recommend that. And then one last statement that we do have on the last page is a possible statement that you might put with your report to say why you haven't put all of the components that you did and when you may be coming back to address those areas and the areas that you want to have further evaluation once you are able to have more access to that student and that assessment. So, and that's just the last piece of that document. So, yeah, let's go to questions.
Okay. Give me just a second to catch up on where we are in the chat. Okay. Sorry, guys. It's a lot to read.
Linda, this is Roxanne. I only see one recent one. It says, I'm
Thank
wondering
you.
about digital resources for passages
Ooh.
in various font sizes.
I don't have an answer for that. Do you, Johanna, right now?
I don't, but does anyone else that's on have a place where they get digital passages so that where you can manipulate the font sizes?
Well, if a student has Learning Ally Link app, if it has the text size or it has the text, mostly nowadays, Learning Ally Link has tried to catch up to Bookshare.org, has the Read2Go app. But I found the font sizes that Read2Go says it is not, it's actually, I can't remember exactly, but I want to say it's smaller than the font size that Read2Go says is not as large as it claims to be.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
All right, and Nancy put in the chat, she used readworks.com. And Jason wrote that he uses Voice Dream Reader and Bookshare. So Jennifer, you asked what in the additional resources what I recommended, and it's the Maryland, the state Maryland.
Oh yeah.
It's their checklist.
Okay.
They actually take the Braille code, they break it down and by preschool, by first grade, by second grade, and so on, what contractions the student should have be already learning and exposed to. It helps kind of guide maybe some of your Braille instruction.
Thanks for sharing the assistive tech book. It's Access Technology for Blind and Low Vision Accessibility, and that is by Yuting Su and Ike Presley. I suspect that many people do not have that book yet, but it is a really nice resource. We went with one that hopefully is on your shelves already with the original Ike Presley book. So
yeah, so we do have the original Ike Presley book to borrow absolutely right now from our resource library. We have ordered the newest Access Technology book for our resource library. It is on back order right now. So it's not available to get tomorrow, but in the next few weeks, we will also have on our shelves in our resource library for anyone to borrow for 8 weeks.
Hi guys, this is Caitlin. We have about 1 more minute left, and Roxanne wanted to say a few words.
Okay.
While she's doing that, I'm also going to start the feedback survey and the webinar feedback survey. So take it away, Roxanne.
Thank you. And there's a question in the chat room. Is there a link for the resources you were just talking about, Johanna?
Yes, Carissa, it is linked in the document that you were sent, that we just talked about today. But if you wanted to email me separately, I can send you the link, send you the document directly.
So it's important you fill this webinar survey out. That's something we need to tie in with what we're doing today. And you can always email separately with questions we didn't get to today. I want to put one plug in that for those of you in the field that know that there is a new teacher of visual impairment or a new O&M person, we have now a support team. Lynn Pansari is on here with a couple of her team members. We've talked about this before. It is starting up. We're trying to reach out to new TBIs. So if you have someone in your districts that's brand new or has transferred in from another state and you need some help, or they need help, I should say, there are forms out online for them to fill out. We have to get administrator approval. So please reach out to those new people so we can help support them. LIO is going to continue giving support to you experienced people with these kind of technical assistance and questions. So that's the difference. The support teams for new TBIs and O&M, and our LIO team is going to continue giving you support with all of these different great questions and providing you with this support. So I want to thank the team from LIO, Amanda and Johanna. You did a wonderful job. It was well received, I see from all the comments in here. Again, if you have questions, please contact our office. Caitlin, I'll let you go ahead and sign off. Thank you.
All right, everyone, this is Caitlin.
This is Jennifer Barley. I'm sorry to interrupt. I could not hit submit on the survey.
Oh, sorry about that. And I can't relaunch, unfortunately. It'll clear out all the data.
Hopefully it was recorded.
Let's see, I guess we're a couple minutes over, but if you have any questions, concerns, Amanda has our email addresses up on the screen. We will also send you a document with all the resources that were provided in this webinar along with the recording. So look for that in your email sometime soon. But I hope you all will join us again in November. I think it's November 10th at noon, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.